All right. Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite Dragons podcast. I'm your host Elijah, and joining me today are two very special guests, two of the most well-respected and accurate NRL journalists there are, Mr. Isaac Issa and Michael Carayannis. Boys, thanks for hopping on. How are we?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing well, man. Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks, bro. Well, we'll address the elephant in the room. Well, it's not really an elephant since it broke last week, but I'll ask you, Isaac, first. You obviously broke the news of Cody Nikorima signing with the Dragons. I just wanted to ask your perspective on him coming to the Dragons. What does he add to the Dragons that maybe that they were lacking before in terms of leadership, in terms of attack play style? What do you think he adds next year?
Yeah, well, you kind of just touched on it there. I think the biggest thing is obviously leadership. You've got a side that is definitely on the up, and you've got a lot of youngsters coming through over there. But I think that Cody Nikorima's shown over the last couple of years that he can be a very strong presence as a leader in the locker room. You kind of Isaiah Katoa, case in point, really. I think he brings a bit more attacking flair as well, and I think that he'll be a good organizer alongside Luke Metcalf, and obviously a great mentor for Cade Reed as well. So I think that it was almost it was a no-brainer in terms of a recruitment choice, and I think that he's going to really elevate the Dragons' floor next year for sure.
100%. Michael, anything you got to say about Cody coming?
Yeah, no doubt. It just adds an extra dimension in attack. And you look at all the players that they've bought next year, the Dragons, it's built on speed. It's built on attacking footy because they've been able to lay a platform this year, but they've struggled getting to sort of finish those good sets off. So, you know, he's a running threat. You look at Luke Metcalf, you look at Scott Drinkwater, 3 points of attack now for the Dragons. So I think he's a good signing, good stage of his career, knows his footy, steady hand, and just adds another dimension to their attack.
100%. Now, one of the biggest talking points of the season was Shane Flanagan getting sacked at the end of round 7, I believe. Now, it took, when he did get sacked, it took months for them to find a replacement. They eventually came to the conclusion that Den Young was the answer. Now, do we think it's the right decision moving forward? Because me personally, I was tossing up in the air. I was very I'm not sure, because he's shown previously as an interim coach. And obviously now, to be honest, he's actually impressed me a lot. But I just wasn't fully convinced. He's starting to win me over. But I'll ask you, Michael, first on do you agree with the Dean Young signing as head coach?
It's really hard to work out what separates Ben Hornby and Dean Young. Really, to sit there on paper, it's very hard to differentiate between the two. So you had to be in the room, right? And it's my understanding that it went really close to the two of them. Ben Gardner was the third person interviewed for the job. But in the end, it was always a race in two between Hornby and Young. And, you know, one thing I know about Dean Young is that the players love him. Like, they seriously do. They want to play for him. They respect him. He commands a room. Ben Hornby is going to be a really, really good NRL coach. And, you know, he's been Wayne Bennett's right-hand man now for a few years, and he'll definitely get a job. So it's, having not been in the room, it's almost impossible to differentiate between the two. And the thing is, I think they were waiting for results to dictate their decision. Like, if they went and won 3 games in a row, it was a no-brainer. If they never won a game and they got belted a couple of times, it probably made the decision for them. But because the side was thereabouts and some of the performances weren't compelling enough, but they weren't horrific enough, it probably made it a little bit more uncomfortable for him. But I'm definitely not surprised that they've landed on Dean Young to be the coach for the next 2 seasons. I like the length. I like the fact that it's a 2-year deal and with a club option in that 3rd year. So I think that's a good play.
Yeah. Isaac?
I completely agree. I think there's kind of 2 angles that you kind of look at it. We spoke to Val Holmes a couple of weeks ago, and, you know, prior to Dean Young signing, and he kind of said that it was almost known in the locker room who is going to be the head coach, and then kind of was eventually revealed that it was Dean Young who signed on for 2 years. And I agree with you, Michael. Like, I think 2 years is perfect, especially for an incoming coach of a side that hasn't gone well for quite some time. I know that when Flanagan was originally moved on and they brought Young in as an interim coach, they made a big point of saying that despite him being interim coach, they are going through a full screening process, and everyone is kind of on a blank slate. But I wonder if you've brought in Dean Young, who has kind of been sitting in and around that coaching position for a little while now. Unless you were going to land a big fish like a Wayne Bennett or something like that. I don't know how far into a rookie coach direction they were going to go with. I think, as you said, Michael, like they were in and around in terms of results. And I think that, you know, there weren't enough kind of leading contenders to really push him out of that role completely, especially with the locker room really honestly in love with him. They love him over there. They think that he's unreal. So no, I agree with the signing. Do I think that he's going to blow out the competition? No, but I think 2 years at the helm, I think will be enough evidence to see if he is your long-term coach moving forward.
100%. Now, it's no secret that the Dragons have recruited extremely well for 2027. Obviously, started with Keon, Philip Sami, Scott Drinkwater, obviously, Luke Metcalf, Connor Watson, and now Cody Nikorima. From a Dragons perspective, my biggest concern has been the lack of outside back depth, and that comes with, Lawson, Sloan, Fine, and Tupulotu most likely not re-signing. I have to ask, is this, and you guys can shut down any speculation or rumors, or if you guys know anything, is this the end of the Dragons recruitment process for 2027? Or can you say the Dragons may be adding, someone in, or are they really trusting their juniors at the moment in the outside backs? I'll start with Isaac.
I think that, and Michael might be able to touch on it a little bit more. As far as my understanding, I think Cody Nikorima was kind of the last big fish in terms of, I guess, who they're bringing in next year. Now I've been told that there are a few other smaller pieces that they are eyeing at the moment, but nothing kind of too major that comes to mind. Again, Michael might have a little bit more information on the topic than I do. But at this stage, as far as I'm aware, Cody Nikorima was the last kind of big fish. You've also got I don't have their salary cap, in front of me and how much each player is on, but you've got to imagine that it is starting to reach its limit. But yeah, like I said, Michael might be able to touch on that a little bit more than I can.
Yeah, that's right. There won't be any more big signings whilst they still have, they've given Moses Sully permission to negotiate. They've got Clint Hutchinson still in the books. They've got Daniel Atkinson. They've got Kyle Flanagan. Unless, one of those or two of those players move, they're not going to have the scope to make a significant outside back sign. And that's what they want. They know they need a strike center. They've identified that. But as it stands for 27, I think it'd be very unlikely that they're able to dip into the market to get anyone of note. I've heard the rumors around Paul Amotti. That's rubbish. He's not going there.
No.
Yeah, fair. I think that the thing with the Dragons is I feel like there's a very big line in terms of this could go, in my opinion, 2027, I think it's going to go really good or really bad. And I just think if the Dragons, their ceiling, and I'll get your thoughts on their ceiling, in my opinion, I could see them finishing around 6th. Like, that's their ceiling. But their floor, I can see a world where health gets the better of the Dragons. And, when you're signing, Luke Metcalf, that comes with that injury cloud that he does have over the past couple of seasons, and a few others that the Dragons are kind of monitoring over in terms of injuries. I can see a world where they do finish bad. So I think one thing that they Dragons need to have is depth. And with King Tonga, he obviously came in about 20 minutes against the Titans and started the game against the Dolphins. From my understanding, he really impressed the Dragon staff. And so I've heard whispers about Atkinson potentially leaving at the end of this year. Is there any truth to that, Michael?
So look, if you look at their starting halves next year, they're Metcalf and Nikorima. Like, that's a bar an injury. That's how it's going to be. They've got Cade Reed on their books, who they believe is the backup half, and then you've got Kyle Atkinson and Wakin King Tonga. For any side, that's way too many halves, right? When you're looking at roster management and trying to get your positional players in order, right? So it's too many halves. So if someone came to them and said, we want Daniel Atkinson, we want Wakin King Tonga, we want Kyle Flanagan, they'd let him go. For sure. Yeah. It's depending on price point and how much they'd have to chip in and all these sorts of stuff, right? But all things being equal, they'd listen to offers for all three, no doubt about it. Kyle's got the added advantage of being able to play dummy half and being a serviceable dummy half because of Watson and Little are the two on the books next year. I don't like Connor at dummy half. I think he's a very good 13, but his service out of 9 is not great. So there's a role for Cole to play next year if he's in the squad. But Atkinson, we saw him play in the final 20 minutes against the Titans at centre. I'm sure in the preseason he'll get a crack at that spot if there's no other additions to the roster. But the concern for him is he's sort of, he's probably not backup half anymore at the Dragons.
Yeah.
So if a club came, no doubt they'd listen to him.
Yeah, Isaac.
Yeah, Dean Young, from what I understand, Dean Young was kind of he was aware of the impact that it would have on Daniel Atkinson. Obviously, the announcement of Cody Nicarima last week coming to the club, Young's across it. Like they're not naive to know that all of these guys want to be first grade halves. And like you said, you've got Kyle, who if you remember a couple of years ago, I believe Shane Flanagan even said that he was brought to the club as a 9, so he does have that added advantage. But yeah, you've got to imagine. I don't think they've kind of tapped him on the shoulder or anything, but they are aware of the fact that he wants to be a starting half, and you blend the timing of that with obviously him dropping out of the first grade squad, and there are questions that need to be answered on his future. Do I think he's a long-term member of this Dragons outfit? No, I don't think so. And I think the club is showing the direction that they are kind of wanting to go into. But in terms of him leaving at the end of this year, I don't think that it's going to be that immediate unless a club is desperately keen to get him on board.
100%. Now, before I ask the next question, I wanted to touch on. I spoke about this last week about young Ollie Burden. He obviously made his cup debut over the weekend, and you're watching him. I was really impressed by his movement and his adaptability to the physicality and speed that was cup, because he started the year in Harold Matts, and I've heard, whispers that the Dragons might be getting an exemption. I'm not quite too sure. But one thing I will say about Ollie Burden is, once Scott Drinkwater and Cody Nicarima, do their thing at the Dragons, I think Ollie Burden and Cade Reid are the future. And as I said, I think the Dragons, I don't know what other team in the competition, maybe this is coming from a Dragons fan perspective. I don't know what other team you look in the competition and you look at, they've got their forward set for the next 10 years, right? And then you look at their backs and you've got Ollie Burden, Cade Reid, young Jesse Williams coming through the ranks out of the wing, Rocco Walker even. With the Dragons, have got a really good crop of young guys coming through. So I just wanted to say shout out to Ollie Burden and all the young guys killing it for the Dragons, because the Dragons are going to have a dynasty in waiting, incoming 10 Pete. Just quietly. But
they just
I
take
think the
10
risk.
gigs, let
I
alone
think the
10
risk you
premierships.
run there. I think the risk you run there. I feel like this was the talk that was coming out when you had the big three of Sloan and Amon and Sullivan. So you are right in the fact though that the forwards are, they are building well. They obviously just extended a couple of them last week. So but yeah, you're on the risk of pushing the dynasty talk like you did with Sloan and Amon. So.
Yeah. Actually, as you said on those young guys, Loco and Halangar, who Daniel Anderson said on 2GB's the continuous call that they were very close to an extension. Is that something we're expecting in the next couple of days?
I probably in the last maybe a few weeks ago, I was talking to a few people in and around Loco Pacific Tonga specifically. I'm not sure how close he is to extending. I know that they've got some really big goals for him in terms of his future in the NRL, and Mike, we might be able to touch on this a little bit more, but I can't speak for him in the last couple of days, but I don't know if it's as soon as we said, but I think the Dragons are expecting to lock down a couple more before the year kind of concludes.
Yeah, he'll resign.
Both?
Guaranteed. He'll resign. I don't know about Jacob. I'm not sure about Jacob, but Loco will resign, definitely.
That's good. And is that something that, well, it's no doubt the coaching had to do with it, because there was all those reports of him requesting a release. That was obviously, he kind of backflipped on that as Dean Young.
Was that
just purely coaching, that he just like to see Dean Young and didn't really fit on the chain? Is that just the coaching?
I don't think I don't know if it was Dean Young specifically wanted at the time. I just don't think that he was fully buying into the direction that that the club was kind of going into. And then obviously he wasn't getting much game time. He's a lot happier under Dean Young. He absolutely loves Dean Young. So that'll play a major role in whether he stays or not, and when he does decide to extend his future there.
100%. Now we'll get into the game that happened last Friday. Now Dragons falling to the Dolphins 28 points to 22 in a game where I feel like I'm a broken record, but the Dragons continue to try their harder every single game. Like under Dean Young, there's obviously been a few outliers like that Roosters Anzac Day, that first night's game, and then the Titans game. But apart from that, the Dragons, win or lose, they've been really trying, and the improvement shows under Dean Young. And this is one of the games where just it kind of shows why they at the bottom of the ladder, just silly errors, really poor choices. Like one, I don't want to pinpoint any players, but I will in this instance. Valentine Holmes gets an intercept on first tackle. First of all, him in any other jersey, he's probably scoring that try. But with the Dragons, he loses a bit of pace, and then on first tackle he throws an interesting ball, to say the least, to Setutu, which is called forward. And in a game where rugby league is so momentum based, you can't afford those. And I don't even think the Dolphins were that impressive, to be honest. I think the Dolphins were quite flat, and it should be a win in Dragons' eyes that the Dolphins were kept under 30 points, because I was expecting a very big scoreline. So the Dragons impressed. Ryan Kausman continues to impress me. Toby Kausman is obviously unfortunate with the 11-day stand-down period because of his HIA. But all the forwards continue to impress me. Gutherson's been trying a lot harder the past a month or so. But I'll get your thoughts, Isaac, since you were at the game. What did you like from the Dragons? What didn't you like? And just give me your game recap.
Yeah, I think that as much as Dragons fans probably don't want to hear it, I think that the discussion around effort is what you need at this point of the season. Like, it's been it's been a disaster of a season, unfortunately, for the Dragons. So for the players to just be turning up is what you want to be looking toward as you get to the back end of this year. Wins aren't going to come that often. I think that kind of all eyes are to next year. In saying that, the Dragons did try. I thought that they were the better team in stretches. Now, I know there was a bit of a contentious call with Isaiah Katoa knocking the ball on. But in the same breath, Selwyn Cobbo crossed over a couple of times and probably should have planted the ball down. So there were lucky breaks on both sides. All in all, I think Ryan Kausman was a big standout for me. I thought he was unreal, and obviously came at a good time because he did end up extending his stay at the club just a few days later. But in terms of, I guess, what to criticize, it's nothing that we haven't spoken about already this year, and it's unfortunate. But every club needs to go through it. You're looking towards the future now. I think to the Bulldogs a few years ago, when they were just absolutely woeful, but they did have signings coming. They did have a direction to go into, and you're getting to the back end of that season, and all you need is to just get the season done with a little bit of dignity. I think that's kind of what's happening here, and I saw it on Friday night. And both teams were really on par for me personally at the game.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I was watching the game from Mudgee. I was there for covering the Penrith Canberra game, but it was the game against the Titans was so bad. It was what we'd seen for the first 2 months of the season for the Dragons. So they needed to rebound and try and grind out a win. They don't have the flashy brilliance to go with the Dolphins in terms of the attacking prowess. So to keep it close, to keep it competitive was a win off the back of that poor performance that dished up in Cogger a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. Now we'll head towards the game this weekend. The Dragons take on the Sharks in the local derby Indigenous round. There's not really much change to the first to the starting lineup, but on the bench making his debut, Jacob Webster. Now, he's a player that's really stood out to me in the past year or so. I remember going to the New South Wales Cup semi, I believe, against the Warriors last year, and he was one of the standouts. The way his relentless effort, his leg drive, everything that you need in a modern-day forward, Jacob Jacob Webster possesses, and I think he's something that the Dragons, the play style, like he reminds me a lot of Dylan Egan, Hamish Stewart.
Mhm.
They all have the same qualities, and I think them playing together in the lower grades, kind of bounce off each other in terms of pause, bounce in terms of qualities. But look, I think it's a very big in. I'm very excited to see how it goes. But the Sharks aren't the Sharks. I've said this before, and I said this on a podcast yesterday that I was on. But I think for the premiership contenders, I think it's a 3-horse race in my opinion. I think it's Penrith, the Roosters, and I think the Sharks. The Sharks have always been around this top 4, spot for years and never done anything in the finals. But for the first time, I genuinely have fear in the Sharks that they could win the comp, and I think it shows testaments to trusting the process, because they've kind of had the same squad for a while now, but it's paying dividends. They've been so dominant this season. But look, it's no easy game. I don't see where the Dragons are going to win, but Isaac, talk to me about the Sharks this season. What have you liked from them?
Yeah. Earlier in the season, I had Sharks versus Panthers for the grand final before the season started, and I'm got a little bit worried there at periods, but I'm glad I've stuck to my guns. I do think that they do make the finals, the grand final, depending on which side of the bracket they are come finals time. Yeah, no, I think that they've been unreal. Now, I think the concern, I guess the fear that comes with this weekend's game is getting a Shark side that is feeling confident, which they are. You mentioned earlier about the Dolphins and I guess the win coming from the fact that they didn't put 30 on. It's kind of the same this weekend when it comes to this Sharks matchup. Like, this is a side that can put 40, 50, 60 on you. And with ease, if they get into a rhythm. Nico Hines is, slotted 32 goals in a row or something of that nature. Like, Braden Trindle has been on one all year. And, they've got a couple of boys leaving at the end of this year. They want to send them off on a high. So yeah, I think that this weekend's matchup, it's a good opportunity for the youngster debuting. It also is a good opportunity for King Tonga to get another chance in the halves and to impress like he did last week. But all in all, like, this is a Sharks side that if they smell blood, they'll go for it. So it's definitely it's going to be a tough matchup for the Dragons for sure.
Before I ask Michael, I forgot to mention how good liking Kintonga was in that Dolphins game. He straight in the attack really, really well. And I think our attack I can't remember the last time our attack looked that fluid. In terms of just not even if we didn't score a try, the amount of breaks that we did make. Just quietly, I don't think that Katoa thing was a knock on. I think in real time it does look like a knock on, but when you watch a replay, it's no doubt that he went back about 5 meters. And I've been critical of the refs this year against the Dragons. I've been very critical of the refs, but that's something where I can put my bias aside and say no, that was nothing wrong with that call. Michael, what's been your biggest takeaway from the Sharks this season? What have you liked from them?
Yeah, I'm with you boys. I think I feel like there's a different element, there's a different feel around the Sharks this year. Like, they've been so consistent over the last few years, but I never consider them genuine premiership hopes, but yeah, this year they are. I know you said there's 3, and I still give the Warriors some hope, particularly if the Warriors can finish second. But I feel like the Sharks won't lose another regular season game and will probably finish second. Like, you look at their draw, it's a pretty good draw, pretty sweet draw for them. I don't think they played another top 8 side. So, if they're up for it, they could basically march home, finish second, and have a home final. Probably not at Shark Park, but it means they don't have to play Penrith and they don't have to travel to New Zealand. That's a pretty sweet draw for them. So, I really like the look of the Sharks, which is ominous for the Dragons this weekend.
Yeah. Now we'll get into our tips. I'll get you boys to get we'll say a score line and a try score from both teams. Now, I would love to be optimistic. I would love to say that the Dragons did beat the Sharks in this same fixture last year, Indigenous round at Kogarah. But bar a miracle of all miracles that the Dragons are just on. And to be fair, it can be one of those games, and Dragons do this often, and they've been doing it for years, where they drag opponents to be on the same level as them and be really bad. I would love for that to happen. I just think Sharks have too many strike power. Their attack is too fiery. I do think, and I could end up wrong, but I think Nico Hines will miss before he breaks the record. I'm probably gonna look stupid once he hits 6 for 6 on the weekend, but I'm gonna tip the Sharks. Look, I'm gonna say 1-12. I'm gonna say a score line of 30 to 20. I think our attack has looked decent. I think we can score a couple tries. I don't know, maybe 20 is too much, but look, we scored 22 against the Dolphins. Anything's possible. 30 to 20. Try scorer from both teams. Look, from the Sharks, you can kind of pick anyone from 1 to 17. Honestly, like the Sharks have a lot of strike power. I'm gonna be safe. Actually, I don't want to do this. I want to be a bit different. I'm gonna tip one of the forwards. I'm gonna say Cameron McInnes against his former team. I think he will crash over. For a meaty. For the Dragons, I don't know who's gonna score. I'm gonna go with the guy who's been our leading try scorer with a whopping 9 tries this season. So that says a lot about our attack this season. I'm set to cross over for a try. So 30 to 20 set to and Cameron McInnes to score. Michael?
I'll follow you in on the 30, but I'll go 10 for the Dragons. Teague Wilton and Setu 2. Teague Wilton, nice hole run for a try.
Yeah, there you go.
Am I absolutely? Do I sound like a liar when I say Michael actually just took my Sharks try scorer? But you're both a lot more optimistic on the Dragons points than me. I think we get 4 points out of the Dragons, and I think we get 34 out of the Sharks. So I'm going to go 34 to 4. Since you took my Wilton pick, Michael,
you can just you can say Wilton, mate. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, I don't want to copy you. I'll go. I'm going to go Will Kennedy. I think Will Kennedy gets through. And give me. See, I'm so concerned about the Dragons in this one that I'm not sure if it's a conventional try that they score. Give me Cookie to score. I think it's going to be Cookie, a little dart through the middle. He was his speedy self against the Dolphins. I really liked what I saw from him against the Dolphins. I reckon he'll crash through to get one. So give me Will Kennedy, give me Damien Cook, and give me 34 to 4.
Easy. Now, before we head on to the separate questions, we're going to do a quick fire tips. So I'm going to go through our tips this week, and you just say one team or the other, and we'll dart through this. First game Thursday, Titans Cowboys. I'm going to go with Cowboys. Michael?
Yeah, Cowboys.
Yeah. Give me Gold Coast. Give me Gold Coast. I
don't know. I just feel like if you lose that badly, there's bound to be how Dolphins did against the Cowboys on the back of losing 6-0 to the Sharks. I think they have to get something out of this. I don't know. But Warriors Panthers. I've been tossing and turning for this for basically all of today. I'm sticking with the Panthers. I have no logic. I'm sticking with the Panthers. Michael?
I'm going to go Warriors.
Interesting. No, I'm probably going to go Penrith.
Yeah. Wrong. Roosters Bulldogs. Now Isaac, sorry, but I'm tipping Roosters by an absolute whopping. I think it's going to be 13 plus, and I think their point differential is not going to look too good after this game. And maybe this is just wishful thinking because I absolutely despise the Bulldogs, but I think I'm going to go Roosters 13 plus. Michael?
I'll go Roosters, but not 13 plus.
I'm going to the Bulldogs. I'm going to the Bulldogs. I don't know 1 to 12, 13 plus, but I'm going to the Bulldogs.
Storm Manly. Now, I don't know. I'm going to tip Manly just because of the back of the bye, but I will not be surprised if the Storm youngsters absolutely fire this game and
well, they were great last week.
Yeah, they were. Battling with the Storm Reserve grade side for 70 minutes is embarrassing in itself. I was like, just quietly. But okay. I'm gonna go with Manly 1 to 12. Michael?
Yep, same here. Game in Perth, Cam Munster named, but Manly with everything to play for they've just got to win.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm the same. Manly.
Yeah. Dolphins Broncos. Broncos have only lost to the Dolphins once in their short history against each other. I'm pretty sure. But I think Dolphins will be too good for them. So Dolphins 1-12. I think will be somewhat close. Michael.
Yep, Dolphins.
I'm gonna go Broncos. I think that I wasn't overly impressed by the Dolphins last week. I'm gonna go Broncos.
Yeah, fair. Rabbits Eels. Now this is a game where I think Rabbits will be too good despite them still missing a few plays, but I think they get back Cam Murray, if I'm not mistaken. He's coming back actually. Yeah, so I think I'm going to go Rabbits 1-12. Michael?
Yeah, I think Rabbits win and win well.
Yep, Cam Murray in. I think that's and they've got quite a few of their troops in actually outside of Latrell, obviously. Yeah, I'm probably on Rabbitohs. I think that they I think 13 plus as well.
Maybe I'll change to 13 plus and I'll think about it. Raiders Knights. I'm gonna go with the upset. I'm going with Canberra. Off a really poor performance and off a really good performance from Newcastle. I don't know why my heart is just telling me Canberra upset because Newcastle have a really bad record. I'm pretty sure at GAO. So I think Canberra get the upset there, Michael.
That was so bad in Mudgee, Canberra, and Newcastle just play with this grit. So I'm going to go with the Knights.
Yep, so am I. I think I'm going to go with the Knights. If they want to hold on to these finals hopes, they need to beat a team like Canberra, who, as you said, were just awful last week. So
yeah. Dragons, Sharks. Sharks 1-12. And we already got your thoughts, so we don't have to go through. Now we have Tigers versus the bye. I'm going to say bye 13 plus. Look, I think the in for the bye. I think the Tigers will. No, I'm joking. I don't want to have the Tigers do like down. We'll head over to the questions that I have prepared and got a few people to send through. I'll ask you one by one. We'll start with you, Isaac. Was journalism something that you always wanted to do growing up?
No, not at all. I don't think I knew what a journalist was growing up, if I'm being completely honest with you. No, I finished school and studied fitness, so it's only been the last few years that I kind of shifted into journalism.
Yeah, fair. Michael, was that something that you always wanted to accomplish?
Yeah, completely different. I knew from a young age, I played footy and loved footy, and once I realised I wasn't going to make it, I always wanted to be a rugby league journalist since I was 10.
When did you realize you didn't want to make it, Michael? That you weren't going to make it, Michael?
15.
Okay, so the dream went on for a bit.
Probably before then, but I always knew I wanted to be a rugby league journo. Yeah.
Were you a league player growing up, Isaac?
Yes, I played actually up until the age of 15. I played for 10 years.
You can't talk.
But I wasn't very good, and I think everyone knew I wasn't very good. I was a front rower back in the day.
Michael, what were you? Were you also front rower, or you were something else?
No, man. I was a half and then a hooker. Yeah, as I got a bit older, but always with the ball in hand, but not very good.
Yeah, fair. Now I'll start with Michael here. Now, what was the most significant or career-making news break that you guys have had? Some maybe that you're very nervous of putting out, but a career make or break situation that you thought maybe your first, maybe your biggest. I don't know what would you say?
I don't think I've ever had a make or break one, but the three biggest stories I've broken probably is probably an easier way to talk about it is the South in Arizona when they got arrested over there. That was my first big story. I was only young at the Herald and had a week's worth of stories and scooped the Telegraph every day, and it was very good. That was probably career defining for me. That sort of started my trajectory a little bit. I did the Manly Pride jersey, and then this year Payne Haas signing for South. So they're probably my three. Heaps of coach sack-ins and things like that along the way. But in terms of genuine news stories that go on for days, they're probably, and Payne Haas was. I've done 1,000 player signings one, but they just came out of nowhere.
I was going to ask because I was listening to an interview from Shams, who's basically the biggest newsbreaker in the NBA, and he was talking about that Luka trade and how he didn't even think it was real, how he was very nervous. Now, Michael, for you getting news that Payne Haas, probably the one of the best props to ever grace the footy field is going to be switching teams out of nowhere to tell. Surely there was a bit of use like, is this real? Was there a bit of doubt in terms of breaking that?
Yeah, no doubt. Like I'd been overseas for 2 weeks and just got back. It was a Sunday, and I said to my wife, the youngest kid wasn't sleeping, so I was like, I'll just put her in the car and go for a drive. And as I was putting her into the car, I had a call and a missed call from one of my contacts, and the text, a call and a text, and the text said, "You'll want this." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." Buckle the kid up, get in the car, goes, and they go, "Well, Payne Haas to South." I'm like, "Haha, what's doing?" He goes, "No, Payne Haas to South, it's happening." And I'm like, all right, this was a Sunday afternoon. So I rang Brent Reed because I'd been away, and you don't know, sometimes when you get these tips, you've heard it or someone's heard it, but you haven't had enough, you haven't been able to firm it up, or you're working on it or something like that. But I said to Reed, I was like, "Man, have you heard Payne Haas to South?" He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "All right, it's go time, baby." So from the tip to publication, 45 minutes.
Wow.
To firm it up and get it up, like to ensure that we were, and we won't write in Payne Haas might leave Brisbane. Payne Haas has been linked to South. We wrote Payne Haas is signed at South Sydney. So we were all in. And I was comfortable when it went up because I knew it was right because I checked it. But the heartbeat, and like I was gone for 2 hours and the little one was asleep. I pulled over to the National Park near my house to file 4 pars on the phone. I rang my editor and I didn't speak. He answered the phone. He goes, "Michael," I said, "Payne Haas to South, writing the story now, bye." And that was it. Get it ready for online. And then 2 hours later, I walk in the door and I said to my wife, "You have no idea what just happened." She doesn't know Payne Haas is, so it's irrelevant. But like, yeah.
Isaac, what about you? Was there because you're obviously newer to the scene? Was there any breaks that you've had where you're really nervous about coming out? Your most significant one that you've had so far?
Can I just say before I answer, and my stories aren't as good as Michael's.
Not yet.
We'll get there. But
you're gonna break the Nathan Cleary signs with the Dragons in a couple of years. Don't worry about it.
I was actually on my podcast it went live on Monday, and we were talking about the Cody Nicarima signing at news from last week, and I actually was speaking about Michael breaking the Payne Haas story as a kind of I guess a reflection of how cool these opportunities can be for a journo. And I was actually speaking about, Michael breaking that story and how unreal it would have been. So to actually hear the story behind it is absolutely insane for me to hear. So like, that's like mind blowing because I can't even imagine, I guess, how groundbreaking that kind of story would be to break. So, that's actually unreal to hear. In terms of my biggest so far,
or just one that you were most nervous to putting out, or just what I mean.
Well, the one I was most nervous about probably wasn't my biggest one because it wasn't as, I guess, solidified when I broke it. But I was still very fresh. I was still working as zero tackle, and I had been breaking little stories here and there about junior development players and stories here and there, maybe a little injury story, but nothing kind of signing related. And then I got a call about Keon to the Dragons. And I was so nervous to break the story saying that he signed there. Even though I got all the confirmation, I still can't do it. So I said, I broke that that they were closing in on him, and that they were, there was advanced talks that, Dragons were going to be signing Keon. And that was kind of my first major kind of signing transfer story. But like to say, like, even Michael saying that he was, they were all in saying he's signing, like it's very underrated how daunting it can be to make that jump to he's signing versus closing in. So, and then you've obviously got stories like, Cody Nicarima last week was a great one. Sully a couple months ago, like there were a couple stories here and there, but that was definitely the one I was most nervous about for sure.
How did that story with Cody come to be? I just wanted to ask your kind of experience of how you found out that he was signing.
Nicarima.
Yeah.
I was actually at it was last Tuesday night, like 8 p.m. and I was at a family dinner night. I was at a family dinner night last Tuesday, and I got a call at 8 p.m. and I kind of went in the back room and they told me, and I was like, "Are you sure?" And called around a couple other places, and they confirmed it. So I kind of messaged my editor, hoping that he'd still be on the clock. Luckily, he was working late last week, and said, "Look, we need to get this out now." He said, "Done, send it through." Typed it up, literally typed it up on my phone at the dinner table, and then emailed it through, and then got all the graphics and stuff ready for socials to go live as soon as it was on the website. ESPN got it out, I got it out, and and that was the story. And then, funnily enough, I had Dragons Media the next day, so I walked in, and the guys were coming over to me like, "Yeah, thanks a lot for that."
Next question from my editor, Alex. What is the biggest misconception you see around NRL journalism in this day and age? I'll start with you, Michael.
That we make it up.
Yeah, I hate that.
Never once have I made a story up. Ever in my life. You might not agree with what I say, but I've never made anything up. So
do you think that just comes off like for example, if you say this player is interested in leaving this club or interested in signing with another team, and then they come out and saying, "Oh, it's all BS, it's all made up." They're the ones that are making it up, and you're the ones that are actually telling the truth.
I don't think I've ever had a story where the only time I've had someone come out and say I've misquoted him was Andrew Fafita. Like many years ago when he was playing for Tonga. I was in New Zealand and I interviewed him, and he had a crack around the Sharks not acknowledging the Tongan team being picked in the Tonga team at the end of year presentation, where they acknowledge the Kiwi players and the Kangaroos players. So I did the story, and he's going, "Oh, this is a misrepresentation, blah, blah." I'm like, "All right, mate." So I put the audio online. So, like, I don't misquote. What is the point of misquoting people? Like, it's there. It's there in my phone. Like, I can't misquote you, So that's the only time, and I've never, like, touch wood, I've never had a retraction. I'm very conservative in the way I do it. Like, you talk around putting stuff up, and like I've written stuff where I've linked players to clubs. Doesn't mean they're going to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I can say blah blah blah's talking to blah 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 because they're talking to them, but I'm not saying it wasn't a Payne Haas, right? If Payne Haas didn't go to South, I got that one wrong because I said he was going to South. Right? If I said Payne Haas was talking to South and ended up at Brisbane, well, he was talking to South, right? Like, so, but yeah, when they say we've made it up, like, that kills me. No, I don't make it up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Isaac, you have the same outlook?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the probably the most frustrating one. You made this up, or that's not true. Like, it's like walking into someone's workplace and telling them, you've done this completely wrong, but you're not actually like across what they do or the kind of the steps towards it. So I can definitely see how that would be. It is frustrating. And especially when you are kind of the caliber that Michael is, where, you're breaking these stories regularly, like you're getting it right pretty much every time. It's almost, it's a hollow shot in terms of, like the truth behind it, because I can't really see. There can be miscommunication, there can be misrepresentation, but there's never kind of, at least in my experience, and ever any reason to kind of make things up in terms of news.
The other one that kills me as well, when people send me my story, like mates or people in the game, is this right? I'm like, well, I hope so. I wrote it. Like, like Payne Haas was different. I had players and stuff texting me, but that was more of a reaction to the news, right? So that one was like I didn't. That was more, wow, is this right? Like, how could this be right? But it's like, I'll write a story. Is this true, mate? Leave me alone. Like, it's true. Yes.
Yeah, I'll get. Is the source good? Is the source good? It was good enough for me to use.
So, I'll tell you what. Like, I saw you make a comment on it, Isaac, on one of your videos, and the importance I've noticed, because I'm doing communications to media and communications. One thing I've noticed is the use of the terminology in your graphics, as you boys said. This player has agreed to sign versus this player is talking to, or this player is closing in. It doesn't mean it's confirmed, but then advanced talks. I feel like fans really take that and spin it, and when they don't sign with that club, as Michael said, they're kind of like oh, well, you said he was going to sign, so you're no longer a reliable source. Like I think it's important for fans to realize that the terminology is very important, and I think that's you boys can probably add to it the importance of terminology and how you word headlines, because that's what people see in order for them to click, but also the extended article. Would you boys agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's something that I've definitely tried to, well, I've learned a lot over the last kind of year and a half, my terminology and the way that I frame stories and the way that I describe a situation, whether it's developing or it's in advanced talks. It's very important to cover your tracks, but also just to remain truthful as well. A player agreeing to a contract, that doesn't mean that he is going to be announced at the club tomorrow. It doesn't even mean he's actually signed. There's a big difference between agreeing and signing a contract. So Michael will be able to talk to this more than me, but in terms of the way that I kind of frame stories and headlines and the like, I am very intentional with the way I do it, as I know all kind of reliable journos are.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's not up to us to know when the club's going to announce it. Like I just cause it like, all right, blah 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 is done. They might not announce it for 3 weeks. I don't know. I don't know when they announce it. Like it's not all mate. The Dolphins. I wrote George Williams a year ago. They still haven't announced it. Like like I don't know. Like
that's
It's even like we did Jonathan Sewer agreed to terms with the Bears months ago, and there's been no announcement, but this it's true. So it's a matter of we don't work for the clubs. Like it's not, but once something's agreed to, it's only a matter of time, really, unless something drastic changes. So
yeah. Next question. This is a bit of an interesting one. Were you guys aware of any big stories that were about to break, but had to keep it a secret for certain reasons and couldn't break it? And maybe that player was going to sign, and maybe something fell through in the closing stages of the contracts, and it didn't come to fruition, the signing. Michael, I'll start with you.
Heaps of things. Yeah, heaps of things. Sometimes it's around protecting your sources too, because they tell you something and only 2 people know. So it's pretty. Like a lot of people in the game, like they don't know who I talk to, and I keep that quite. Like I wear that as a badge of honor. You can't say I'm aligned with this agent or this guy or this or that, because I don't show it. Right? This, people know I'm close to the Dragons, but that's through natural progression, right? But there's heaps of stuff that and you just can't write yet because not enough people know. I'll tell you a story. I had a story once of these Canterbury were about to sack 5 staff members. I rang the CEO, and the CEO was like, "Mate, they don't know yet." Right? I said, "Well, tell them." And, do you know what I mean? Like I'm not just right. So eventually they told them they probably had to hasten that because word was getting around. So I would never go with that story without the people being told, right? Eventually they'll told them. I still got to break the story and stuff like that. So there's stuff like that, and if you're dealing it also depends on what you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a player movement story, or you're dealing with people's lives, like people getting sacked, they're different, right? There's a human element to things as well.
Yep. Like that.
Yeah. It's. Especially around player contract, there's been plenty that have been, under wraps or, shouldn't be spoken about for certain reasons. I've come across quite a few. I'm very particular as well. In terms of I don't, I won't publish anything unless, certain permissions are given. So, there are quite a few, but I think the ones that are worth telling and are solid eventually, they do come out eventually. It's just a matter of when it's the right time for your source and for the people involved. So there definitely have been quite a couple have come up.
How do you balance being first with being accurate? Because I imagine as a journalist, not that there are any feuds, well, with some journos there are, but internally there would be kind of a competition factor of I want to get this out as soon as possible before anyone else does. To be internally, maybe subconsciously, it's probably something that journos do think about. Is there any how do you balance being first but also making sure the content that you put out is as accurate as possible? I'll start with Isaac for this one.
I mean, really, at the end of the day, I'm not going to put something out that I'm not confident in, anyways. So it's not a matter of speed versus, I guess, reliability. It's more so speed to ensure reliability. Going around, making calls, getting all the information gathered as quickly as possible. But it's never a case of jumping the gun. Like there have been times where I've held things and because I didn't have enough information on it. For example, one that comes to mind is Talakai to the Bears earlier this year. Had the story but didn't have enough to really run it. And then I think it was announced, either reported or announced like the next day. So sometimes like you miss out on stuff, but it's more so just being fast enough to get the story reliable as opposed to speed versus reliability. Because and Michael knows far better than me, but in terms of, I guess, like your job role is to be reliable. So I don't think it's ever really been like a competition in my head between speed and reliability.
Yeah, I don't know. They're not the same thing for me. They're completely different things. Like,
Mhm.
there is we work in a newsroom, right? So it's fast paced, it's dynamic, and you want to get the story up first. But I will never. Number one's right. If I miss a story, I would always rather miss a story because I wasn't 100% sure than write a story and be wrong. I don't want to be wrong, right? So I check it. As I said, I'm conservative, and I've got different things as well. Like I've got a column on Wednesdays for Thursdays, so I need to make sure that that I've got stuff for that. Like that got me on Cody Nicarima because I was keeping it for that. I had 360 on Wednesday, and I had my column, right? So I was like, all right, well, I'll do it bang afternoon on Wednesday and get it up, and then talk about it on 360, and have it in my column and things like that. So it's a balancing act for those things as well. So it's not just keeping it just going bang straight away online. It's around I work for weekend papers and stuff like this. So yeah, you got to spread the love a little bit as well, which sometimes can get you. Happened to Jaden Brayley again on the weekend with Isaac. He got me again on Jaden Brayley. Like I was doing that for Sundays, big Sunday. We're doing this big Tigers feature. Jaden Brayley going to the Tigers, had that ready to go. I sent him a text saying he's becoming a pain in my ass.
Look, to be fair as well, and Michael, and a lot of other journos, the way that they their processes work are different to mine as well. I don't have as many kind of responsibility, and it does come up. I don't know if this was yours, Michael, but I think a few weeks ago I wanted to save Junior Bolo to the Bears for the podcast. And I think I got the message on Saturday morning, and I wanted to save it for Sunday night, and I had my fingers crossed.
Because we were doing the Sunday column that week, so we had it.
There you go.
Yeah. Saturday to Sunday, yeah.
And so it's a matter of just like you miss out sometimes, and it's it sucks, but at the same time, like news comes and goes so quickly, anyways. Like I think that the value of a really good journalist is like, you miss something one week, but you reset on Monday anyway. So, yes, those were two great stories last week, Nicarima and Brayley, but you start again on Monday, and my goal is to repeat that this week and stack them up so that in 5, 10, 15, however many, I can be like, Michael's got thousands of news breaks. So the goal is to kind of continue building on that. Yeah, you might miss some, but I rather that than have kind of a poor reputation.
Yeah, that's fair enough. One of our finishing up questions. Have you had anything that you've published? So have you published anything before that you've later regretted? If it's on a story or if it's just an opinion based of or anything that you've regretted. I'll start with you, Michael.
Well, I had that incident with Jerome Law a few years ago, which I don't like, which I regret, definitely. And I've spoken about that 1,000 times. It's not like I sit here with a badge of honor wearing it. Like I don't like talking about it because, I was in the wrong and it blew up, and it was just silly. It was immature. It was not immature for me. It was I shouldn't have said it publicly. So that was that definitely one. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Isaac.
I don't think there's anything that I regret per se. No, probably not. Probably nothing. I don't think I've got into that just yet. Everything has been, either gone under the radar anyways, or has been. Yeah, no, I don't think there's been anything that I majorly regret. No.
Fair enough. And our final question, we're going to play a bit of a game. We're going to be blind ranking journos. So here we go. So I'm going to give you 5 journos, and you're going to have to come in agreement. We're not going to do separate lists. We're going to get both of you to agree on, who's 1, who's 2, who's 3, who's 4, who's 5, without who's coming, without knowing.
They're probably Michael's colleagues.
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to play this game.
But I tell you what, would you guys prefer having a joint one or having your own separate one? Maybe that's better than your own separate one. Maybe that's.
I'm happy to give a separate one.
Yeah, we'll do the separate one. So first name up, Brent Reed. Start off strong.
Is this in terms of just like?
However you want to perceive it.
Like I'll put Brent Reed 1. Like he's one of the best. So I'll put him 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put him 1 as well. I could put him 5 just for a laugh, but I'll put him at 1.
Next up, he's not currently a journalist, but a recently retired one, Michael Chalmers.
Oh.
You're killing me.
I'll put him at 2.
Yeah, I'll put Chammy at 2.
I knew I would get you guys. Next name up. This is a bit of a Danny Weidler. When you guys rate Danny?
Oh yeah, 3.
3.
So whoever gets 4 and 5, unlucky.
The thing is, like, this is probably how I'd rank them anyways. I'd probably put him at 3.
3, okay. Bulldog Richie.
I just put Bulldog at 4. Just say many drama. Bulldog 4, and who's 5?
I'll put Bulldog at 5.
So you, Isaac, you have 4, and Michael, you have 5 remaining. And then it's just Buzz. He's not a journalist anymore.
Yeah, chuck Buzz at 4.
I had to chuck Buzz in there.
I'll chuck Buzz at 4.
With that being said, that's going to wrap up the 39th episode of the Saints podcast. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you guys like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let us know what content ideas or whatever. Make sure you guys show some love to Michael and Isaac. And with that being, I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, guys, see you next episode.